Hey everybody, I'm Zach and I'm making a game. Welcome to week 4 of Gamedev, but only the fun bits. This week we went into hoping we'd have a demo by the end of the week, and well, let's see how that turned out. Let's get into what we did. So started this week laying out all the elements of our dream course. Kind of made a list of everything I wanted in the level to kind of test out what I wanted to see if it would work or not. Laid out all the elements, all of the meta elements we've been building in the previous weeks, and clicked the generate button, and what came out was a bunch of garbage. At that point, I tried to stay positive. I thought it might be just one issue. I started digging into it, fixed a null pointer, an off by 1. There were a bunch of tiny things that were fixed, and by the end of the day, I had something that was a mess, but not quite as much a mess. A little bit closer, but, well, we'll get into what happened next. So Tuesday, after I had what I thought was an okay generation working, I started working on some of the missing features I knew I needed to build. So a panel descriptor, which describes what textures and materials to apply to generated streets and guardrails, etc., etc. And then the other thing was a panel direction hint so that they will face the right way. So guardrails, they won't face away from the street, they'll face towards the street always. But even after I built that, things still weren't quite working. I was still getting elements that were facing the wrong direction, so it would essentially be inside out, streets that were upside down. So after a larger investigation, I found out I needed to make a really large refactor to make it so that the direction vectors, the tangents of my curves, would happen in local space rather than world space. So previously they were defined by a global direction from the node, but the problem is if the node is rotated, then you actually want to rotate that vector with it. So I had to redefine everything so that it was all in local space, and then I would actually get the correct direction hints for how to position or how to do the normals of the panels. By the end of Wednesday, I started driving around my dream course, and it was still not good. Even with all these fixes, even with all these features, stuff was broken. So the thing was, from the editor, things looked right. From a kind of God's point of view, it looked right, but once I actually got on the course, once I started driving around on it, I realized the curves were wrong, the segments weren't lining up entirely right, there were bumps and dips at random points. There were a lot more subtle, tiny things that were going wrong with my street generation that I just didn't have an idea of what they were. Starting with the dream course was probably a bad idea. I probably should have done what I did here, which was pared down to the simplest course possible. Got a layout that was really simple, just basically a 8 loop that had a single bridge. As simple as possible, got that working. I got split screen working again on it. I even got my AI driving on it. Something still felt wrong at the end of Thursday, and I just didn't know what it was. My best guess going into Friday was that the game was designed around being open. Like the mechanics really are designed so that you're weaving between different paths, you're trying to throw people off your trail. So I went back, I made a new course version 3, not quite dream course, not quite as simple as possible course. End of the day Friday, I had a course laid out, I could drive on it. There's still some things that need to be fixed with junctions. Right now, it's really too easy to design them so that they're jumps instead of smooth. So essentially, when you come to a junction, rather than having a smooth kind of hump, you have a jump, kind of like a half pipe. And you don't want that, but it's hard to do that in the Bezier designer from the editor. So I need to make some more visual tools so that I can design levels more drivable, more what I intend them to be like. So the current state of things, it turns out this week's demo was more of a mirage. I think I'm still 2 to 3 weeks out from a real, like, vertical slice of what this thing should feel like. It is scary because, you hear people saying, oh, you should have, like, a prototype after your first week. You should have something that's fun really quick, or you should drop it and just do something else. So I am worried, but I think I have bits and pieces prototyped. I think I'm still making forward progress, and most importantly, I think everything I'm building right now could easily be pivoted to a different game if this racing game just turns out not to be fun. So yeah, I'm feeling okay. So getting into next week, like I mentioned, first thing I'm doing is that smooth edge generation. That is #1 priority, because right now I'm flying off into nothingness off the course when I get to a junction. So making that tool so I can make smooth junctions. Second thing I'm getting into is I'm calling street ground edge generation. It's kind of hard to explain, but right now between the streets it's just empty voids, and I have a system I think will work for generating patches between the streets, so that there won't be anything you can really fall into. So that's going to be the next step. And then the third thing is tied to that, where filling those patches with things, getting a entity placement system. So when I have a big patch of land, I can say, hey, you should fill this with these entities, these trees, these buildings, and it will fill it with that. So that's the third project, and after all those things are done, I think I'll have more of a level. That's all for this week. That's my projects for next week. I'll see you guys another week, and I say the word week too much. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching.